Hi, I'm Lena Rao, and welcome to our Ask a VC show where we put VCs in the hot seat. Today, I'm really excited about our guest. We have Kleiner Perkins partner, Matt Murphy. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. I'm just going to go into your bio a little bit. You focus at Kleiner on investments in mobile and cloud infrastructure technology, and some of the companies that you've helped lead investments in for Kleiner include Shazam, SimpliVity, Puppet Labs, AppDynamics, Shopkick, TextPlus, Aerohive, and a bunch of others. You also manage the iFund, which is an initiative with Apple that focuses on funding and building applications for iOS in the App Store. That's a pretty varied group of territories to cover. I mean, you've got consumer, mobile, you've got enterprise, virtualization, the cloud, other mobile things. There's not that many VCs that have the kind of expertise that you have in both areas, and how do you manage that, and what are you looking for when you look at a company?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing as an investor right now is there's two such huge trends around mobile and cloud, so investing in both, it's a good time to be doing that. I think part of the iFund, when we started that 5 years ago, that was really based on the premise that smartphones and tablets were going to be a huge consumer phenomenon. So I was spending most of my time on that. As things have evolved, and what's exciting right now is seeing that it's also becoming more of an enterprise phenomenon. So we're kind of getting to that tipping point in enterprise where enterprise consumers, prosumers, are demanding the same kind of applications that consumers were demanding on their smartphones and tablets. So I think we're seeing a wave of innovation of people kind of reimagining workflows and applications in the enterprise, and a bunch of entrepreneurs flocking there. So I'd say still very focused on both, but I think if you look at a new greenfield area, kind of enterprise applications around mobile are kind of betting ahead of the curve, like it was a few years ago with consumer.
Sorry to interrupt here, but I want to talk a little bit about that enterprise mobile angle, because John, a reader, sent in a question for you specifically about what's the next big thing in enterprise mobile. Yeah. From his perspective, there's already been some innovation in that area, and there's companies that are doing interesting things in mobile and the enterprise. But what's sort of next for that area?
Yeah, well, I mean, wave one really started off just making sure that everyone can securely do email in the enterprise, right? And you've seen the wave of MDM companies and things like that. But all that is that kind of puts the plumbing in place for people to use these devices. But as soon as that happens, consumers say and employees say, what's next? I want all the applications. We've already seen the shift in modality in the way we as mobile consumers spend our time, right? Facebook announced that over half of their users are now, and their activity is on mobile. In fact, mobile users are 2.5x more active. We're seeing that in a bunch of our portfolio companies, shopping companies, and so forth, where now it's going 10, 30, 50% of their traffic. So what's happening is the way we as individuals, employees, consumers are spending our time is shifting to mobile. So in the enterprise, it's no longer okay for an employee to say, oh, for that application, for that kind of activity, I have to go back to my desktop. I have to go to my PC. I have to have that application on the mobile device. So I think the next wave of interesting applications in the enterprise are much more of that ilk. And I think, you could argue, why doesn't SAP, Salesforce, and so forth do those kind of things? We could have made the same arguments about why the incumbents didn't really weren't all of them as successful on the mobile web or consumer web as well. So, early examples of that are companies like DocuSign, which was an investment our growth fund led recently, where it's kind of changing a paper-based workflow, and things that used to take 2 to 3 weeks to close a deal. Now 8 people can see a digital signature, click it, and a deal is done. So kind of, companies like that. We also have a couple of seed investments, one that I'd call kind of Flipboard for the enterprise, a unified workspace, just like Flipboard is for all your reading. It's called O1 Labs.
O1
It's a
Labs.
seed investment right now. We've got another one that is still kind of in stealth mode. It's reimagining the way employee workflow is done. When you join a company, you're no longer given 8 forms and fill them all out, I-9, insurance, payroll. Basically given an iPad, you fill it all out and it automatically populates a bunch of computer systems to streamline the onboarding process.
It sounds like there's so many different areas of innovation, even within mobile.
Right.
You also have invested in a couple of companies that deal with database security. I mean, there's just so much innovation happening in enterprise. Are you seeing the same pace of innovation happening in consumer?
Well, I think, it'd be hard to say it's not the pace of consumer is not on par. I mean, the base of consumer has been red hot for the last 3 or 4 years, and I think what's happened in the last year or two is, enterprise is getting a lot more attention because consumer feels crowded, higher valuations, too many companies tripping over each other, too many spaces, and enterprise is still a little bit more greenfield, especially areas like we were talking about where mobile and cloud meet the enterprise, and how do you kind of reimagine workflows and things like that. So I think the other good thing that's happening is investors, some of the best entrepreneurs who only wanted to do consumer companies are now saying, this enterprise opportunity seems a little bit more greenfield. That's one part of it. And the other thing that's happening that's very exciting is investors just reimagining this whole stack, the new cloud stack. We have investments there, as you mentioned, Puppet Labs, the kind of automation provisioning, App Dynamics, the performance management layer. And what's going on there is companies used to be deploying these vertical stacks that were very easy to manage, and a whole existing tool chain and set of services emerged around that. And now that's all kind of thrown out because everything kind of scales horizontally. Netflix, for example, has their application is written as 400 discrete cloud services that can be in different data centers, on or off premise, things like that. So the way you manage, you instrument, you provision, you scale that is just so different than the way people have built applications before, and that is kind of leading to all these new kind of startups and opportunities.
Interesting. I want to switch to the Shopkick arena because we have a question from one of our readers, Jack. Do you think the mobile digital wallet is overhyped? And while Shopkick isn't really a wallet, it is playing in sort of the mobile commerce field. Right. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, I don't think it's overhyped. It's probably just one of the most promising things we all see on the horizon. It's just there are too many companies kind of going after it, and it doesn't feel like anybody has gotten it quite right? So I think that's why everyone knows the promise that, wow, if I could get rid of that leather thing in my back pocket and everything was on my phone and I transferred you money and everywhere I walked I paid for things. I mean, the promise of that is pretty profound. And I think we'll get there. There's just been too many people trying to take too many different bites at the apple. If you look at the carrier initiative with ISIS and them trying to get in the middle of the transaction flow and so forth. So
who is going to own that transaction? I mean, there's got to be someone who is the owner. And is it, there's companies like Square, and, of course, there's PayPal. Right. There's even the financial institutions like Visa and Amex who also want to own it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think Square and PayPal are both very well positioned. PayPal wasted a lot of time not focusing on mobile. They're kind of fastly, catching up right now. But Square kind of getting in the middle of, small merchants and then adding that to a point of sale system and then consumers being able to order directly for the phones and things like that. And then pretty quickly what you have is, a money moving service that's all digital and you don't even need the swipe anymore. So I think they are, just given their kind of footprint and the passion of their user base, they're very well positioned. Google Wallet has promise. I think the whole notion that all phones are going to have NFC is, that's taking too long, too expensive, and I hope that we're not waiting for that to really drive the market. But I think there'll be a lot of different approaches. I'll be curious to see where Apple takes Passbook, and every merchant can have a little, barcode and passcode that is how you pay with things. So we'll get there. It's just taking longer than it should have. But it's a big opportunity.
Let's talk about the iFund. Yeah. That's something that you are in charge of over at Kleiner. How many investments have you guys made via the iFund?
It's a little over 40 investments, and while we've publicly said we started off 100 million, doubled it to 200 million. I mean, now it's over kind of $400 million of investment, and per our earlier conversation, the aperture's expanded to enterprise applications as well that operate on iOS and other devices. So it's going well, and I'd say the thing that's changed in the firm is that mobile used to be an area led mainly by me and Chiwa Chen, my partner, and now really we don't think of mobile as something separate. We think mobile is kind of the future of both consumer and enterprise applications. So we don't think of this as a mobile investment. We think of most of our investments having a significant mobile component to them.
What do you think about the Android platform? I mean, that's definitely, Android phones are now becoming, the most prevalent mobile computing device out there, especially internationally.
Right.
Where, do you feel like there should be an A fund? Well, I think there is an A fund.
There is an A fund, but I don't think people talk about it very much.
Yeah.
I think at this point in the market, we've evolved to a point where, consumers are going to pick whatever smartphone they want to, and I think the good thing as investors is that there's just so many of them out there, well north of 1 billion smartphones, and now we see, 70% of new phones sold in the U.S. are smartphones, and 2-3 years ago it was 10%. I mean, it's just crazy how quickly this has changed. So I think it's great to have two strong ecosystems. It keeps each company on their toes, and we'll see whether a third one will emerge. But what we're all for is just big innovation, platforms that allow people to innovate, and watching how quickly consumer behavior changes, and all that's going on in parallel at a seemingly increasing clip.
Great. Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us,
Yeah.
and come back again.
All right, thank you.